This is the audio file we received last month. It was found inside a used Zoom H5 recorder bought at a small pawn shop near Duluth, Minnesota. The seller said only one thing about it, that it came from a winter fishing trip that went wrong. He wouldn't say anything else. He couldn't. The next day, he was reported missing. We cleaned up the audio for clarity, but we didn't change the content. What you're about to hear is exactly how it was recorded. I bought the recorder because Minnesota winters sound like nothing else on Earth. You think you know quiet, and then the cold takes the world by the throat and holds it still. In that stillness, wind makes a low tunnel through the pines, and the ice answers from underneath with a voice of its own, chuffing, groaning, puckering like an old bruise. I wanted to capture that. The way it feels to stand alone on a frozen lake when your breath turns to glass in your scarf. My name is Ethan Hall. I was careful about names before all this, but afterward, I learned to be religious about them. We drove north from Duluth with the weather warnings snapping at our phones like angry dogs. The highway turned to 2 lanes, and then to 1 as the banks lifted on either side and the evergreens developed that coated, armored look, every needle jacketed in frost. Chloe rode shotgun, reading blog archives and digitized newspapers, her gloved finger tapping the screen when she found something that made her eyes narrow. Mark followed us in his truck with the sled and the auger and the ice rods, cracking sunflower seeds and spitting them into an old Folgers tin, the way he did whenever he needed to convince himself he wasn't nervous. "I'm telling you," he said on the walkie as we took the county road toward the ranger cabin, "Ironwood's a honey hole. No pressure, no ice houses, just big, dumb pike with nothing to do but make me look like a genius." "Folklore doesn't say anything about pike," Chloe said. "It says Ironwood was called a pit, as in a mouth." "A fishing mouth," Mark said, cheerful. "Perfect." The caretaker's station looked like a snowdrift that had swallowed a cabin and left the chimney gasping through. The wood around the door was gray as bone. When I knocked, the sound felt smaller than it should have, absorbed by the cold. A sliver opened. The man on the other side had that brittle, varnished look of a person who's made of winter now. Eyes clear as ice chips. "You the 3 for Ironwood," he said. Not a question. "We called ahead," I said. "I'm Ethan. That's Chloe and Mark. We're doing a piece about..." "Don't go," he said, and there was nothing melodramatic about it. Just a man telling you the stove's hot. "We can handle it," Mark said. "We fished red in a whiteout. This ain't snow," the old man said. "This ain't weather. Ironwood don't freeze right. And whatever hole you find out there, don't feed it." His eyes flicked to me, to the recorder hanging from my neck. "And don't give it your names." He shut the door with a finality that made us all take a step back. The bolt slid. The wind blew a powder of snow from the lintel, and it caught in the corner of my eye, stinging. On the way back to the trucks, Chloe said without looking at me, "You recorded that, right?" I did. "Good," she said. "Later you can check the part where he called it a hole. The 19th century accounts call it a pit." "That's just a word," Mark said, but he didn't sound sure. We parked as close as the drifts would allow, then loaded the sled and started the walk to the lake. 2 miles doesn't sound like much until you're dragging 100 pounds of gear with -20 air turning your nose into something you have to hold carefully between your face and your scarf. It was the kind of cold that makes you polite with your own body. The trees were heavy with it, branches bent under a shell of hoarfrost so delicate it looked like glasswork. I switched the recorder off to save batteries and told myself I'd remember the quiet. Ironwood appears gradually, the trees loosen, the light opens, and then you're looking at an absence where the forest should be. I've been on plenty of lakes in winter, and most of them are a mess. Snow ridges, patches of glare ice, drifts that look like dunes. Ironwood was flat. Not just calm, flat like a poured floor. Under a skiff of powder, the ice was black and clean. The world slid onto it and didn't disturb the line. "This is creepy as hell," Chloe said. Her breath curled and hung before the wind remembered to take it. "It's perfect," Mark said, already swinging the sled around. "You couldn't ask for better." We stepped onto the ice, and it held the way a steel plate holds. Even so, I felt it give in a way not measurable. Something in the sound as our weight moved, a hollow I'd never felt before, as if there were space under the space. We walked 100 yards out, no tracks but ours. At the shoreline, a small knot of red interrupted the white, strands of wool frozen into the ice, and beside it, the rounded stub of a candle, half swallowed by melt and refreeze. Chloe crouched, chipping gently with the back of her knife. The wool came away in her gloved fingers, coarse and dyed a dull, old-fashioned red, the kind used in knitted scarves and mittens that last for decades. The candle was pinched to a nub. Someone had pressed it into the edge of the lake and held it there long enough for the ice to set. "Kids," Mark said, which even he didn't sound like he believed. "Out here?" Chloe said. "When was the last time you met a teenager who carries candles?" "Goth ones do," Mark said, and then added quickly, "Can we fish?" We picked a spot because that's what you do when your options look too much the same. I set the tent, and the sound of fabric and poles and zippers felt civilized against the blankness. Inside, our breath made a little weather of its own. The heater ticked alive. The world took a step closer. Mark drilled, the augers screamed shivering in the tinny space of the tent. And when he pulled the corkscrew of ice up and the water showed black in the hole, Mark leaned in as if he could see all the way through. We set 2 lines and let the quiet settle. I clipped the recorder to a line inside my jacket, the mic peeking out of my collar to catch what my mouth might forget to say. That first night, I took the watch because I always take the watch on the first night. I don't sleep well right away anyway. The heater exhaled. The fabric occasionally clucked in the wind. And outside, the snow hit in minute grains like someone sanding wood a mile away. I was almost bored when the knock came. It wasn't a crack shift pop. The usual grammar of ice. It was a knock. 2 slow, 1 short. A syllable you could repeat back if you were the sort of person who did stupid things when dared. My first mistake was having a category ready for it. If you recognize a rhythm, you make room for an answer. I held my breath, counting the space so I could later prove to myself that I hadn't imagined it. 2 long, 1 short. I didn't say anything. The old man's voice stood in the tent with me like a 4th person, a thin wall between me and the short reach of the hole. I went to wake Chloe. She sat up with that immediate awareness of someone who isn't surprised to be interrupted. The light from her headlamp made a cone on the ceiling and showed us our breath like thought bubbles. "What rhythm?" she asked quietly. And when I told her, her mouth pulled a little. "Don't answer it," she said. Mark woke because he sleeps like a bulldog, noisy and easy to stir. He listened as if he could muscle the sound into being ordinary. "Ice knocks," he said finally when the morning came, and nothing knocked again. "Pressure waves. The whole thing's a drum." "Pressure waves don't learn patterns," Chloe said. She made coffee that tasted like aluminum and burned dust. We passed the cup and pretended to enjoy it. She set rules then, like a teacher writing on a board, and I felt a small, solid relief just hearing them said out loud. No names by the hole, no chatter with any voice that didn't come from a visible mouth, no gifts, nothing dropped into the water, not a coin, not a lure, not a crumb of food. "What is feeding?" Mark asked, his smile uncertain. Attention is food, Chloe said. Heat is food. Names are food. We found another wool strand that afternoon, 30 yards on, and another candle stub. This one had a hair frozen to the wax, a single silver thread like a spider's line. And though I told myself not to, I leaned close and saw that there was a knot at the end, as if someone had tied it to something once and cut it with a clean blade. I imagined it tugged into the hole and swallowed. And when I blinked, the idea didn't go away. Mark got a small walleye around noon, and he was so pleased it was almost a joke. The fish's pupils were enormous in the dim light of the tent. Its stomach was flat, as if something had ironed it. Mark unhooked it with the gentleness he brings to the parts of his life he loves, and the fish swam back down with the limp glide of a tethered balloon. It occurred to me that in summer this water would be full of boat noise and laughter and someone's radio failing at classic rock. But here in winter it was only us and the recorders and whatever had enough patience to make 2 knocks and a tap. That night the lake did its quiet ventriloquy again, but not with the rhythm. It laughed, not loudly, not theatrically, just a wet, involuntary chuckle, like someone choking down a joke they didn't want to tell. It was Mark's laugh, too, a thing with shoulders in it, running downhill and catching, the sound he made when he wanted to be harmless after being a little too competitive. We all looked at Mark. I didn't, he said, and that would have been enough if he hadn't sounded so much like someone insisting on a thing slightly less than true. He was outside the tent a minute later, pissing an anxious hole in the snow and stomping his feet hard when he came back. "It's an echo," he said, his breath leaving in big, guilty puffs. "You all have heard echoes." The laugh came again from just under the black slit of the hole, close enough to make skin tighten behind our ears. The rule about no sleep held itself until 3. Even the careful and the frightened have a limit. Chloe read until the words stopped meaning anything. Mark pulled his hat over his eyes and pretended to be awake with his mouth open. I watched the heater and listened to the tent fabric talk to the wind like old neighbors. When the voice came this time, it skipped the game of pretending to be incidental. "Hello," it said, and there was nothing dramatic about it. It was a child's voice, in that it had the soft roundness and no patience for consonants. The syllables came up through the ice as if the speaker were lying under a glass table and we were taking tea on it. "So cold," it said, and then, absurdly, "Please, just a light." I had the headlamp in my hand without remembering how it got there. I thumbed the switch and then felt Chloe's glove on my wrist. She didn't squeeze. She held, the way you hold a door against a draft. "If you give it what it asks for," she said softly, "it learns what kind of person you are." "Names," I thought, "and where you keep your warmth." Mark said my name then, quietly, as if that made it better. "Ethan." And the voice tripped over itself a moment later, finding the new shape, trying it, liking it. It sounded, for a breath, exactly like him. "Hey," it said, and I heard in that copy voice the part of Mark that had a basement full of tackle and plans. "Hey, you awake?" We made it to morning by refusing to say yes, the way you make it to shore by refusing to look down. The snowmobile wouldn't start. Mark's truck had accepted the cold with good Midwestern stoicism the day before, but the sled's engine made a startled cough and then a flat, nothing sound, as if we had asked a glass to sing. We let that be the first answer to the question of leaving. The second answer came when we stepped outside and saw that the prints we'd made to the tent had been smoothed, as if some hand had passed over them in its sleep. Not covered, not drifted, gone. We could see the crimp of wind on the snow where it had lipped up against the stakes. We could see the sharp little arrowheads of Chloe's boot treads near the spot where we'd found the second candle, Our trail back to the trees was clean as a white sheet. "Snow does that sometimes," Mark said. And then, when Chloe didn't bother answering, okay, not like this." We argued about staying put versus walking the shore to find another exit point. Neither option seemed like a plan adults would be proud of. In the middle of it, we heard a woman screaming from the tree line, the kind of hoarse, ugly scream that has already been trying for too long. Mark moved without thinking, the way people run when someone else makes them forget their own weight. And I grabbed him because that was what I had learned to do. We stood there in that ugly, ragged cry, and it went through us like a cold wire. And there was a part of me that had already stepped toward the trees, that was already lifting a hand to wave. Chloe said quietly, "What's wrong?" "What?" I said, grateful for questions that felt normal. "The wind," she said. "Listen." There wasn't any. The sound in the pines rode nothing. No branches moved. The cry reached us with that impossible clarity radio stations have when you pull into the one valley they've always wanted to fill. It didn't change with distance. It changed with us. A laugh in the tent, a voice under the ice that asked for a light, the way a child asks for a cookie it knows you already have. A woman who screamed from trees that didn't sway. It felt like the same mouth, trying different words. "We go now," Chloe said. "We walk the shore and keep the lake on our left, and we do not stop until we're back at the cars." "Without the sled?" Mark said, incredulous. "Without anything that makes us heavier," she said. He looked at the gear and picked up the Folgers tin and the auger and then put them both down. "We need water," he said. We have water," she said. "We're leaving." It was a relief to move. The cold is easier when you have a task. We took the tent down, and it felt like we were dismantling a room in a house we shouldn't have rented. I told myself the prints smoothing away was just the wind doing something I'd never seen before. I told myself the woman's scream had been a fox. I told myself a lot of things I could have believed in a different story. I don't remember dropping the quarter into the hole. I remember holding it, Washington's head rubbed almost featureless from how long I'd carried it as a good luck piece. And I remember Mark saying something like, "A gift for safe passage." And I remember Chloe saying his name like a thin bell. Then the coin spun and flashed in the weak light and fell down a long way in a short time and clicked against something that didn't sound like water. "Why?" Chloe said softly and without a question mark, and then louder. "Why would you do that?" "It's a coin, not," Mark began, and the knock answered. Too long, one short. The knock had a new weight. Not louder, denser. Something had learned something. The ice around the hole made an old man's sound as it moved, and the air in the tent seemed to step in, as if the space had just been measured and found wanting. "We're leaving," Chloe said again. No more calm in it, and that became the only sentence we knew for a while. We stepped out into the white noon, and our breath formed flags in front of our faces, and the trees by the shore moved at last. They didn't sway in the wind, they inclined. The trunks tilted toward the lake an inch and then an inch more, the way you might lean down to hear a story told too softly. Snow slipped from the upper branches and fountained down, but there was no gust to make a show of it. It just fell, like time. We kept the lake on our left. The shore curved and the light never changed, bleached, directionless. It lay on the snow as uniformly as paint and made the world look shallow, like a backdrop. Our tracks lasted exactly as long as it took to make them. When I turned, the line behind us was already blurred. By the time we reached the old boat ramp, it was as if our first footfalls had been mistaken and gently corrected. At the ramp, the snow had drifted in a clean wedge. The sign, a rectangle of aluminum bolted to two posts, was pitted with shot. Some old boys had decided the lake needed holes in summer too. Someone had taped a handwritten warning beneath the printed regulations. You see those near any body of water if you pay attention. Don't leave trash. Don't be an idiot with your dog. This one said simply, "No names at the edge." Chloe stood there reading it as if the letters would turn into something that made sense. "I swear this wasn't here yesterday," she said. "Maybe we didn't see it," I said. "Maybe it's for someone else," Mark said. And there was the joke wanting to be made, the thing he would have said in any other life. Maybe it's for the fish. Maybe it's for the lake. He didn't say it. He looked very young, with his hat pulled low, and ice clotted in his beard. We cut right to follow the plowed road back to the cars. The cold was a place we had to pass through, not a temperature. The recorder bumped against my chest with each step, like a small animal I had to make sure of. The road ran straight for a quarter mile and then bent. We didn't make it to the bend. Mark stopped. He stood listening in that way he had when he thought he could beat a problem by figuring out how it might see him. "There," he said softly. "Do you hear?" He stepped off the road, down the ditch, and up the far side before I could grab him. The snow gave until his thighs disappeared. He fought forward, head up, certain he would find a person, because Mark is the sort of man who thinks that if a thing can be found, he should be the one to find it. His face showed the exact moment when good intentions turn into a conviction that you'd be a coward if you turned around. The scream came again, exactly like it had before. And he did not look back at us when he said, "I hear you." Chloe said his name, and the trees leaned in again, as if they were listening for the sound of a gift. I followed, because that is what you do when someone you love makes a mistake loud enough to become the weather. The ditch ate me to the hip, and the snow was a powder that didn't compact so much as give and give again. A mattress that refused your weight until you were convinced there was no bottom at all. Mark's steps were bright strata, then not. 2 strides ahead, then 4, then none. The world went heavy with a silence that wasn't emptiness so much as attention. I looked to my left in the lake, far enough away to be safe, looked back with a sheet of black, reflexless eye. "Mark," I said, and I knew that was wrong as I said it. The sound of it tasted like an apple with a worm in it, sweet until it wasn't. The trees seemed to consider the mouthfeel of his name. There were no footprints ahead of me anymore. I took 3 more steps because the body is a creature that believes in whatever it's already doing. Then I stopped, because stopping was the last choice I'd get to make that day. Chloe's hand found the strap on my pack and held, not hard, the way you hold a person who thinks they're falling forward to show them the gravity is a suggestion. "Back," she said. Not to me. She was speaking to the air, to the idea that we owed a thing out here something it could use. "We're going back." "Mark," I said, and she shook her head once, tightly, her mouth a thin, white line under her buff. "If you say it again," she said, "it will be closer." We backed out, heel first, the way you leave a room where something has decided you are an object. When we reached the road, I turned. There was no trench where Mark had struggled through. There was no break in the smooth geometry of the drift. The ditch wore the same skin as before we touched it. I told myself we would find him at the truck. I told myself he was the kind of man who had circled back on a different line because he hated making an error bigger by admitting it. I told myself a lot of small comforts that were true as long as I said them with a voice that didn't shake. Back at the lake, the tent sagged just enough to look sorry for itself. The hole had skinned over with a thin membrane of new ice that hadn't had time to grow color. The quarter was not visible. Of course it wouldn't be. The heater had given up. The air inside had that smell it gets in deep winter. Tin and damp plastic and the ghost of heat. Like someone standing just off stage with a match. Chloe lit a candle. I didn't see where she got it. It came out of the same sleight of hand that produces Kleenex at funerals and safety pins in locker rooms. She set it on the upturned lid of a tackle box, and the small yellow flame looked as obscene as a daisy on a grave. I realized I was trembling only when the flame winked as if in a draft. The draft was my hands. "We're not staying a second night," I said, and Chloe nodded. Her eyes tracked the candle as if it could make a decision. The knock came then, not from the hole, but from inside the tent, as if the fabric had taken it into itself and only then let it go. 2 slow, 1 short. It rattled the rods, made the zippers sing. I put my hand over the recorder and felt the small machine breathing with me. "So cold," the voice said, from under the ice that was already a little thicker. "Ethan," it said, and it was patient and guileless as a kindergarten teacher. It used my name like a door you share with a neighbor who waters your plants when you're gone. The candle spit and guttered. A bead of wax chased itself down the side and stopped halfway, as if making up its mind. The little circle of warmth it made was gentler than I remembered warmth being, like an apology. The voice paused, waiting, listening to the light, the way a person listens to a secret they know you're about to tell. I blew it out. The smoke made a thread and then a bell and then nothing. The tent filled again with the one color winter has when the day takes its hands off the sun. We sat there, the 2 of us, in that small, breathless dark, with the lake considering how we sounded when we said each other's names. Outside, the trees leaned a fraction closer to hear. And then, on the other side of the tent wall, in a voice as ordinary and affectionate as if he had only gone to the truck for batteries and was now coming back with his shoulders hunched against the cold, Mark said, muffled, "You guys? Open up." Chloe's hand found mine and squeezed once, a Morse code digit I felt in my bones. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I didn't say his name. Outside, boots shifted in snow that left no prints. A gloved hand patted the tent's seam near the zipper. 3 polite taps, testing the shape of the door. 2 long, 1 short,